Well,
Of course, they kind of do that now anyway.
and they were certainly not doing it as a way of solidifying their economic future.
Yeah, it wasn't a
And
retirement
certain-
situation
yeah,
for them.
Certainly now, if you're in Congress, there probably are some lobbyists knocking at your door, and probably a future after your elected time in Congress goes by. There have been laws that said that you can't become a lobbyist within several years after you've been in Congress, but there are other things that they can do in between those couple of years, so.
I can only imagine.
so.
I think so.
Vince, any last words before we? Oh, you said you had a quick real estate joke.
Oh, yeah.
You have about 45 seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah,
This is not
The real
this
estate-
is not R-rated.
no, not R-rated at all. Obviously, the real estate business is a little competitive, so one broker decided to open up on a certain corner, and he put up a sign that said "Best Agents," and he started to do pretty well. So on the other corner, another guy opened, and it said "Lowest Commissions." So a third guy opened right in between them, and it said "Enter here."
There you go. Exactly. I love that. Thank you. First of all, Vince, thank you very much for joining us in the studio here.
Thank you.
Okay, thoughts for the day. Just 20 seconds of fuel remained when Apollo 11's lunar module landed on the moon. I'd say that was cutting it just a
Wow.
bit
Is
close.
that true?
That's apparently true.
Amazing.
It says it here on the piece of paper, so it must be true, right? Welcome. You're listening to the Best of Investing on News Talk 910. You know our show. It's where we present valuable information about real estate, the financial markets, and other economic business of the day. And for those of you listening for the first time, here's our format. A few guys sitting around a bar talking business with you, the audience, listening in. I'm your host, Edward Brown, and I'm pleased to have as my co-host Mark Hahn from Pacific Private Money, California's fastest growing private lender, and Lou Botmal of LPL Financial. And today's trivia theme is movies with numbers in the title.
Oh, nice.
Okay, you guys will get most
I got a
of these,
couple of
I
those.
think.
I
Okay,
got some already.
our website is bestofinvesting.com. Check us out on Facebook and YouTube by typing Best of Investing Radio Show. And we are also on television, Comcast Channel 26 on Saturdays at noon and Sundays at 6 p.m. Now, today's special guest is Scott Ingalls, who is a police officer, and he's going to share some helpful hints regarding identity theft. And he is actually a certified investigator with the Robert Presley Institute of Criminal Investigation with a specialty in identity theft investigations.
And that
Scott-
sounds official.
That sounds very official, yes. And for those of you who are just listening to the radio, he is a real police officer and he has a real gun. So watch your P's and Q's, boys and girls, on the show here. Okay,
Yes.
Scott, so first question is, what is ID theft really and what constitutes ID theft?
So ID theft can best be described as the use of your personal identifying information, and we can go into what that is, for an unlawful purpose. And what constitutes it is anytime somebody other than yourself uses that personal information for any type of unlawful means, whether it's to benefit from goods or services, to obtain credit in your name, and obviously it's not you that's doing it.
So you're working with it, not necessarily in the realm of what a lot of people know as identity theft today, which is like on the internet, but stolen checks and there's all kinds of everyday ways that people do that. Is that not true?
That's correct, and we as a patrolman with the San Rafael Police Department, we deal with all kinds of issues. We're typically the first group of people that get called regarding an identity theft issue, and whether we obtain the report ourselves or we process that information and send it on to another agency that's going to be doing something about it, it is what it is. But we typically are the clearinghouse, the first level that people deal with.
See, I tried to show up to the Giants game as Pablo Sandoval, but I'm not from Venezuela and I'm not over 250 pounds. I didn't get in.
And you can't hit a home run like that 3 times in a row.
How do you know?
Big assumption there. Big assumption on my
Hey, listen,
part.
I play T-ball in my time. Okay. You had a question, Lou?
The question I have is, what is PII? What's that's personal information? That's
So, and I'm
How do you
exactly.
protect yourself?
I brought reference material to look at this, but personal identifying information, commonly referred to as your PII, is anything either a name, a phrase, a passcode, a number that uniquely identifies you in the world, whether that's with an organization, with a banking institution, with your gym. For instance, your gym number, if you belong to a gym, could be considered personal identifying information. And the use of it, that information for any kind of unlawful means, whether it's to, say, accept goods or services from a gym, whether that's to receive credit from a credit card company or a bank, that can be considered your personal identifying information. So everybody knows the big common ones, which are your social security number, your driver's license number, but that
Date of birth.
date of birth, correct. But that could also be just your full name in and of itself. That could be your address. That could be, again, like a membership number for, say, the gym or an online retailer. Any of that information qualifies as your personal identity.
So when I file my tax return and I say, I'm scared that you're going to use this for ID theft and that don't put in my social security number, I don't think they're going to go for that.
It's possible,
Yeah.
but I could read you off what's here. It also includes unique biometric data, including other unique physical representation, unique electronic
Thumbprint.
data,
DNA.
stuff like that. Exactly. I mean, you could take that unique biometric, could be anything, correct? We hear about retina scanning, we hear about
Oh, yeah.
fingerprints, we hear about DNA. Those
Well,
are most
you know,
common.
I had just mentioned about the IRS. There was a time, just a couple of years ago, when you'd write the check to the Internal Revenue Service, and some people would just shorten it to IRS. Well, some lady at the IRS was taking the I and changing it to an M, so that it said MRS, and then Mrs., and then she'd fill in her name, and she was cashing checks that were
Clever.
supposed to be to the
Whoa.
IRS. So they changed that, and they go write it out to the U.S. Treasury.
My big question is, if someone gets hold of your information and uses it fraudulently, what should we do? I don't.
So the first thing you should do is always monitor all of your bank accounts. And the first bit of advice on that would be you always have to know where your money is. You always have to know where your credit cards are. You always have to know what you have. One of the worst things a police officer can hear when they show up and they get this call, hey, what do I do? Is, okay, well, tell me what's missing. And the answer is met with the
Everything.
answer is met with a
Yeah.
blank stare. It's everything. You have to know where all of your stuff is. And then you pass that information off to your local agency. The way the penal code reads is that the local agency, or wherever the victim is, the person whose personal identifying information was used, is required to at least complete a report, if that's it. Now, typically, your information is not going to be used in your local jurisdiction. You live here, say, in San Rafael, but your information is used down in the greater Los Angeles area.
Well, mine was stolen some years back, and it happened to be in Kentucky.
Yeah, correct. And that's out of state and even out of country is very common.
Well, these guys must have been professional too, because they actually, apparently, the guy went into a Lowe's department store and tried to set it up with a California driver's license with all my information, but a Kentucky address.
Is definitely a clue for the Lowe's that was out there that,
Exactly.
hey, this doesn't look quite right.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Is this something that's growing in nature, or has it always been kind of like a problem?
It's since the beginning of time, I believe, people have been trying to get away with, say they're somebody else or get away with it. In the digital age where so much information is transmitted over digital media, there's definitely an increase. I've been a law enforcement officer for 14 years, and there's been a marked increase from when I started till now. And that's I believe that's the prevalence of, the ability to do these transactions over the cell phone, over computer, over smartphones, and just over, wireless media. From
Well, you
away.
remember the movie The Man in the Iron Mask
Mm-hmm.
with Richard, right? There was identity theft right there.
Well, it seems to me that it's, with technology, it's getting easier and easier to steal one's personal information and conduct identity theft. Is that not so? And what do we need to do more so today than ever before to guard against that?
So it's a fair assumption to say that with the more you use it in public, right? Smartphones are a perfect example. Along with the smartphone, you used to write your check at your kitchen table or in your office where nobody was watching. Now you're conducting those same transactions in public, at a restaurant, in line at the movie theater, with all of this information that's readily available. So you want to follow the basic principles. Everything should have some sort of passcode, and it should be a difficult passcode. And then, for instance, when you're typing that passcode into your phone, you want to make sure nobody's looking over your shoulder while you're doing it, or you're not speaking out loud while you're actually typing your passcode in.
Well, a question for you, because I thought about this. Okay, typical situation, you go to a restaurant, pay your bill, you give your credit card, and they walk away with it, do the transaction. What's to stop them from just taking a notepad, and now they have the front and the back
Not
with all the
much.
information,
Not much is
right?
stopping them, yeah.
Right, correct, not much. Your diligence in watching, you can sometimes watch the person walk away or come back with it. If anything seems out of the ordinary, make a mental note of it, and then you should always be monitoring your credit card activity. People tend to look at their credit cards or their bank statements once a month when the bills are due.
Sure.
And it doesn't take a long time, and actually technology's made it considerably easier to do it, is you should constantly be monitoring your
Or sometimes what'll happen, they'll call you if they see something strange.
Right, is it true that, I heard this, that a lot of police officers, because they're involved in this side of the business, actually use more cash in transactions? You find yourself and other police officers doing that more so than?
Yeah,
because they know.
we all have our methods of getting it done. I think cops tend to be more paranoid than most people. Absolutely.
And with that, we're going to cut to our first commercial break. Scott, stay with us. We got a few more things to talk about identity theft here. And here is our first trivia question. And again, the theme is movies with numbers in the title. What was the name of the movie that starred Cliff Robertson as John F. Kennedy regarding the boat he commanded? We will be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hoff of Pacific Private Money and Lou Botmal of LPL Financial. When we get to the first commercial break, we asked this first trivia question. What was the name of the movie that starred Cliff Robertson as John F. Kennedy regarding the boat he commanded? Anyone?
PT something.
109?
PT 109. The two of you get together, you get the right answer. Very good. And we are in the studio here with Scott Ingalls, who is a police officer who is an expert in identity theft. And Mark, you have a question for me.
Yeah, I have differing opinions on this, whether I should or should not be using my debit card on transactions, both online and in person. Do you have any opinion about that, or do you have any recommendations that you make to your clients?
There's no indication that the use of one type of credit card versus another, a debit being that the money comes directly from your checking account, versus a credit card, which is a revolving account that you reconcile at the end of the month or something along those lines. So there's no indication that there's any one is more susceptible than the other. The biggest issue is that you know when you use your card and how you used it, say a dollar amount, a retailer. Some advice we do give is typically people carry more than one card or have more than one sort of access account, and use one for online retailing, use the other for in-store purchases. That way you're splitting or minimizing your risk across different cards in different locations is a suggestion that can be given. For instance, I use one card specifically for online purchases, I use another in the store.
Well, I would think that you'd actually
That's
be more
smart.
susceptible because just the more cards that you have, that's
Well,
not the case?
it is possible because you're putting more of your information out there. However, you're not revealing that information to any one point of compromise. And at the break, we were talking about how that credit information is obtained. It's often referred to as a point of compromise, and whether that's at the point of sale, say at the cash register. I believe you had mentioned when you're at a restaurant, you pass your card over, and they swipe it twice. Are they using a skimmer in their hand to accept your information there? Is this a point of compromise where the bank actually suffered a hack at their internal server? Or is this literally somebody's using a pen to write down the information on a piece of paper?
Well, yeah, because Barnes & Noble just had an issue with tampered keypads or something, people stealing their pens.
Absolutely, and those stories go around. Yeah, I had not specifically heard about Barnes & Noble, but the point of sale compromise, or hearing that say a given national retailer, even an international retailer, suffered some sort of breach at the server level is very common now.
Okay, and besides the typical Nigerian email, what other kind of scams? Which I'm still waiting for my millions, by the way.
You won the lottery. Here's $5,000. Return $2,500 of it. Correct?
Something
Yeah.
along those lines.
Yeah, so there are two main ones that we deal with just very commonly that just never seem to go away. And one is the lottery scam, where you'll get a letter in the mail saying that you won $5,000. Please send us your personal information. And people do. They will send out their name or their address, and a couple days later they'll get a letter and a check in the mail. And it says, hey, it's $5,000, but you only won $2,500. Please deposit the whole thing and then send me a check for $2,500 or some given amount. And people will return it. And then by the time that their check does not clear, bounces, right, you're $2,500.
So yeah, listen, I'll wait 6 months to make
Right.
sure it clears, and then I'll
Right.
send it. The thing is, with the internet and Google, I'm wondering why they have to get personal information that way. It seems like it's so easy to just Google and get information.
They can get information that way, but it's typically it's faster to go directly to the source, correct? And that which brings up the second way that information commonly gets out there. It's known as phishing. Your bank is not going to call you and start asking for your personal information over the phone or over the internet. You're not going to get it. Your bank is not going to send you an email that says, hey, we need your password, we need your social security number to verify who you are. Okay,
Yeah.
Banks don't operate in that method. Legitimate banks don't operate in that method. So if you get an email or you get a phone call asking for information that just doesn't sound right, they're asking for your password, your driver's license. Oh, hey, we just want to verify who you are. You can go ahead and hang up on that one.
Well, interestingly enough, when I was the victim of identity theft and I got a call from Lowe's, and the guy had said, is this Edward Brown from California? And I go, yeah, and then he said he wanted to verify some information. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, you tell me what information you have, and then I'll clarify it. So
Correct.
then he was able to say, well, this is what I think your birth date is and your driver's license number. And well, okay, now I'm listening seriously. What's going on?
Exactly. And you never, you would never back up that information. Let's say he throws out a birthday and it happens to be right. A good thing would be, okay, just say
Next.
okay or continue or next, exactly. Or hey, ask the person on the phone, do you have a phone number that I can call you back at? When they provide a phone number, use the internet, use the phone book,
Yeah.
use the number on the back of your ATM or your credit card, and verify that the number they gave you actually matches up with something with your bank.
Well, I had gotten one of those faxes where it was like for a really cheap price, you get to have all these great vacations. And so the funny thing, I just said, I really, honestly, I just got to check this out, just for fun. I called the guy. He sounded like he was from some African country, but he spoke English. And then he started asking, or he was telling me all this great stuff. He says, "Listen, go ahead, check us out." And he gave me the specific website. And when I did, there was all this good, legitimate stuff. And then when I basically said, "Well, I'll get back to you," I went back into the internet and just Googled the company that he said, and then all this scam.
Absolutely. Because it's easy to create a web page that looks legitimate, and they can post that up the same way anybody could. But when you go out to the internet and you go to a search engine of your choice and you do it,
Yeah.
people will talk about it, or it won't come up, or it won't match, or there'll be something.
Well, here's
on
the
there.
other thing is, so, like I got something from Chase, and again with their logo and all that, and it
Yeah,
looked
they're
a
getting
little
really
funny.
clever these days, the
Yes.
phishing scams.
Absolutely. So what I did was I called Chase,
Yeah.
and they said, "No, thank you so much for not giving the information. We're the victim of identity theft ourselves." So to speak.
And what do we do? I talked to a client one time, went through this, and I guess there's an FTC website or a.
FTC.gov, the Federal Trade Commission, and they're probably the most well-known clearinghouse on information and methods by which they have the forms on there, affidavits of forgery, national reporting forms that you can complete. If you Google identity theft, it's typically one of the first ones that comes up as a.
So see
But
see
then
your
also-
police officer first, then go to FTC, or what?
I would recommend going to ftc.gov and reading as much information as you can. And same thing about the internet. You should always get your information, if you can, from more than one source. So the FTC is one website. There are tons of identity theft websites out there that you can look at, read the information. You'll start seeing a lot of it, the same stuff over and over again, just to reinforce what's going on.
And make sure you do FTC, not FTD, or otherwise flowers will show up. And so the other thing is to call